Our universe is inconceivably rich, it's full of opportunities, and often it reveals itself in so many unpredictable ways. It's just amazing. I believe you can simply ask the universe, and there's a high chance that you will get what you want. Knowing exactly what you want is already half the puzzle. The biggest challenge is how to discover those things that you never ever heard of that are beneficial for you and that you would like to pursue in life. There's a few things in life that you really know, so you could be expert in something. This is what we consider knowns. Other things which you heard of, but you are not expert in them and you just know roughly they exist. These things we call known unknowns. But there are other things in life which you never ever heard of. I call them unknown unknowns, and this is a majority of things in the universe. So I consider the process of finding beneficial unknown unknowns as one of the biggest challenges in my life. Let's think of a thought experiment. Imagine that you are about to die from diarrhea because of severe dehydration, and a little bit of special salt called electrolytes like sodium, potassium, magnesium could just literally save your life. So you just need to take this salt and it saves you. This sounds like a relatively easy thing to do. However, like millions of people in the world dying because of that every year. So yeah, imagine like it's a game and you just need to survive. So how would you do it? You know that there's only like few step solution. A, you find the computer. If you don't have it, maybe some building has the computer. You can access, search the internet. You find, okay, here is the particular salt that could help you. Find this salt, drink it, then your life is safe. Basically, I want to say this is not rocket science. Sadly, millions of people die from severe dehydration and diarrhea. I think there are deeper reasons of why this is happening. So it's not just lack of knowledge, it's because we need to provide as a society good healthcare and like clean water to developing countries and so on. The point I'm making is that people often end up in really bad situation, and there's a few step solution out of this, and you just need to find the information on how to escape it. I think the same lesson could be applied not only in developing countries, but like here as well. Like for example, one of the biggest causes of mortality is cardiovascular diseases. They kill so many people. And the cardiovascular diseases start developing since you're a kid, basically. It's just symptoms appear like few decades later when you are maybe in 60s. The question is, could this risk be reduced? I think in many cases it could be reduced. It's just we never think of that until we get the problem. Okay, let's talk about positive things. Have you ever thought like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine my life anymore without this? What if this handful of steps which would make your life better, more joyful, more rich? Surely luck plays a massive role in our life. Still, you can pull like a few levers here and there and make it way better. Sometimes I think of our universe as a graph. Our life journey is basically like a path in this graph. The nodes of this graph represent state. For example, you are like intern at Google. You can get to another state, like get full-time job at Google. You pass some interviews or you prepare for the interviews, and that's how you get from one state to another state. I think this is like really useful construct to think about life, because sometimes you want to optimize the shortest path from one state to another. This is a well-known problem, Dijkstra's algorithm. At other times, you want to also enjoy life. So you want to choose the edges which would bring you the most joy. What I noticed about myself is that I'm relatively good at moving along the edge, aka executions. If I have a target, I can reach it. For example, solve 500 problems on the lead code and you are at Google. Another thing is like prioritizing. So if I have 5 different options, like 5 edges from my current state, I can sort them and I can choose wisely which one to go ahead with. So that's manageable. It's a bit worse than execution, but I still can prioritize. However, there are like unknown edges. So there are other states in this graph, and you just don't know if there are any edges into those nodes. So this is basically discovering unknown unknowns. Our universe graph have lots of interesting properties. Property A is that I think our graph is strongly connected. So that means that there are multiple ways to get from one place to another. Also, I think it's a dense graph. There's always just a few steps to get from one state to another state. I think if you were working for 20 years to become a software engineer in this particular state, then you can actually reach the same state maybe like, I don't know, in 10 years or like way shorter than this time. It's just you don't know how. Basically, someone ahead of you could definitely help you to reach their state way faster. So I think there are shortcuts or like shorter paths in this graph. So if something is too hard, you are missing some insight. And once you find this insight, it would feel obvious. I always feel this like visualization in my head of some aliens or archaeologists or like historians in 1,000 years or basically like any external observer. They're kind of watching me and laughing like, oh Sergey, you are such an idiot. The solution was right in front of you and you just didn't see it. All the information was already out there in abundance and Sergey did make a little effort to find it. Sometimes this thought keeps me going. This is something that drives me to think outside the box. Also know that this could be really hard for the mental state, so you need a balance basically. I just love thinking about our universe as a giant escape room, and you just need to find the key, whatever this could be, to go to another room to get more exciting stuff. This is pretty interesting concept and this is what makes me excited about the future. But be ready, not all the useful things would be useful for you. So sometimes you need to be ready for it. For example, if you don't know how to read, you can't enjoy books. For the comment, obviously, you can listen to audiobooks, but that's not the point. Oh, this is interesting observation that you can kind of hack system. There's multiple ways. So, for example, the field of ecology or sustainability seemed important, but extremely boring for me before I actually discovered this fascinating world, and I don't see my life without this. I think this is one of the most interesting things that you can work on. Or for example, some like tier 1 UK visa helped me to save few years for the settlement. So this was really helpful for me, but it wouldn't matter if I didn't live in the UK, for example. So it would be just a noise. So really a lot of things would be useless and irrelevant for you at this stage. And it's totally fine, but you can definitely expand your scope of what is relevant and interesting for you by discovering more and more different states in the graph and trying new things, or finding alternative ways to broaden your scope, like listening audiobooks when you cannot read, for example. Often we follow someone else's path in life. When I was a student, I actively participated in different programming competitions like ACM, ICPC. I was part of those communities. So I had lots of friends who were going to different internships like at Google, Facebook, other big tech companies. There was kind of a window into another world for me. I was following their path and this made my life 10 times or 100 times better. So now when I look at my friends from Google, DeepMind, Facebook and so on, I see a lot of people with similar background to mine. Yet I see other people who had like completely different path and they also ended up here. So I was thinking, wow, that would be really cool to kind of travel back in time and tell the younger version of myself like, hey, there's multiple paths to get here and here is all the options that you could have. Or at least to show you some tricks how to discover those options. It's very important to be aware that you are a role model for somebody else. It would be great to do more deliberate activities towards empowering other people around you. Provide them optionality, find out ways to inspire them, because somebody else inspired you. I think all of us is a product of our environment. You are a product of people that surround you. There's role models for you and you are a role model for somebody else. Even in small things like you recycled rubbish, great, somebody noticed it and they also started doing that. Let's try thinking how to design a framework for discovering useful unknown unknowns. All of you probably know what a brainstorm is. So the brainstorm consists of 2 stages. Stage A, you try to generate lots of different random ideas, applying no filters. So it needs to be something like radical, no judgments, just like could be anything out of the world. And then on the stage 2, you try to apply a filter and see how each of those ideas could be applied for real life. This principle could be applied to our framework as well. So it's kind of a funnel. On one side, you have like a ton of ideas flying in, and then on the other side, you would have a filter where you decide what to do with this idea. Honestly, I don't know all the answers how to come up with the best framework to discover unknowns possible. It's like in mathematics, sometimes you see a theorem or some mathematical model concept and you have no idea where it comes from, but it's very useful to build up your intuition by just solving specific examples or corner cases, and then at some point you generalize the solution. And so let's look at different concrete examples or heuristics which could be helpful. So first of all, read more and hang out more with people. I think this example is like very generic and not helpful at all, but it all comes down to finding good sources of information and processing that information. People are super important. They changed my life so many times. So try finding and joining great niche communities where people could teach you new stuff. Another example is mining ideas. I think there are so many places where you can find ideas. However, some places are way better in quality of those ideas, or like how many ideas are there, or density of those ideas. So I think of some places as a mine for the ideas. You're like, whoa, this place has so many different ideas. So you can just look through them and like learn so much. Astro, CEO of Google X, was always telling us, prioritize things where you can learn the most. Another idea is like, have a team of analysts. I'm a very big fan of Peter Attia. He's a physician focused on the medical practice, focused on longevity. He has an amazing podcast, and recently he published a book called Outlive, strongly recommended to anyone. He says that in his area of interest, like longevity or health, there's a paper published every 3 minutes, and also 99% of them are not really relevant or not good quality. So what he did, he hired a team of analysts, like they're very good professionals, PhDs, like trying to study the same things. So what they do, they split all the papers into batches. Everyone reads their batch, and then each of them does the initial filtering. So the pool of papers that they need to read eventually is relatively small. I think that's a great idea. So maybe consider crowdsourcing something that you are searching for. Another idea is Harry Potter. One of the books that changed my life is called Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality. It's a fanfic written by Eliza Yudkowsky. I read it about 10 years ago and I feel it just was mind-blowing. So in this book, Harry Potter is a tiny mathematician and is using scientific method to discover fundamentals of life in the Harry Potter universe. It's super fun and it's touching so many different points, like how to discover cognitive biases. And this book originated as a thread of blog posts on the author's blog called lessron.com. There's a ton of different interesting information that you can mine there. If you know any other books like that, please let me know. Another thing that is worth looking at is called Effective Altruism and 80,000 Hours. Basically, it's a philosophy and communities that trying to maximize good for the world through scientific methods, through your career, through projects, through donations, and so on. I know that some people find these communities a bit controversial or like even a bit toxic, but I'm not trying to judge anyone. I think this is a really, really good source of thought-provoking ideas. Tap into the brains of your existing network. All of us have so many good friends like Instagram, Facebook, like LinkedIn and so on. Why not ask them about like book recommendations or like which movies to watch or who to talk to? For example, you are traveling to another city. Simply asking friends who they could connect you with, it's a really good idea. Or maybe you are struggling with something and you don't know the answer, so you can write a blog post about this and publish and show it to friends. Surely you will get some ideas. Brainstorms and masterminds. A few times in my life I was participating in a very well organized brainstorm sessions, and I think all of these times were really, really fruitful, and it's kind of changed my approach to things. So you should definitely do that. Another idea is going to different events. Just create a list of events or conferences where you would like to go, especially in the fields that you are not familiar with. So you can learn so much more there. If you don't know any, just ask your friends, maybe they do know. Another idea is like, why not to host events yourself? You can organize dinner at home. You can bring some folks with fresh ideas and try connecting them. I think that would be really beneficial for everyone, and this is so much fun. If you don't know where to start, there's a few books on the topic. One is The Art of Gathering. It has a lot of good ideas. Just sample people who you admire. So for example, choose 10 people and then write them down. List the reasons why you admire them. What qualities make you attracted to them? Then you can find people with more qualities like that. You can read their biographies or you can reach out to them and ask questions. That's not a problem. For example, my hobby is freediving. So a few years ago, I reached out to the deepest freediver in the world, Alexei Molchanov. He can do 130 plus meters down and up. It's like mind-blowing. So I simply DM'd him in Instagram when he was in London. We managed to grab coffee and talk. He's like amazing human being. If you have good questions, people would definitely help you if they have time. A lot of cool people are willing to help and give back. Just don't be afraid. Find someone who you want to be and ask them questions directly. Another idea, I would call it search in big collections. So I think in one of the podcasts with Elon Musk, I saw he mentioned that when he was a kid, he was reading encyclopedia and that's how he got new concepts. I'm not suggesting you to go and read the whole Wikipedia, which could be pretty cool thing to do. Eyeballing through big collections could be really fruitful. For example, recently I was reading descriptions of master's programs at Imperial College London to just understand which careers are possible, which careers people have. Just trying to think if anything there would be a good fit for myself. At PitchBook, there's a list of emerging spaces. You can just have a look and there's so many different things. You can search different databases like LinkedIn, Crunchbase and others. Find people with similar background and then just look where they ended up in life. Then you can simply reach out to them and ask how do they like it. So 7 years ago, I was an intern at Google in California and I was desperately wanted to work at SpaceX. So on LinkedIn, I just found on LinkedIn a few people who were interns at Google before, like myself, and then who later ended up working at SpaceX. So I reached out to them like via Facebook because back then it was less cringe, and then asked what does it take to get there, how do they compare jobs and so on. I didn't end up working at SpaceX because you need to be a US citizen and yeah, there's many things. But those conversations were really insightful, and this is the way how I found opportunities in the future. In general, it's pretty good thing to find people this way and expand your horizon. Another idea is a Tinder profile story. So I have a friend of a friend who was really tired swiping endlessly on Tinder to find the perfect match. So what they did, they manually labeled a few thousand of pictures, basically where they would swipe left or right, and then they trained simple neural net to do it for you. So after that, they deployed this model to run 24/7 and swiping automatically. And as soon as someone matched and also replied on their first message, they basically got phone notifications and engaged with the person. Like, I don't know what the takeaway should be here, but I think it's a fascinating example of applying engineering in life. Another idea is a marketing campaign. So first of all, you can try figuring out who is your target audience. Maybe you could get a list of emails or profiles of people selected by some criteria. Then you can run a marketing campaign, let's say in Instagram or some other places where you can promote your blog or something else. I think this way more relevant people could find you and engage with you. Another option is read someone else's blogs or notes. I'm following blogs or newsletters of many people. Some newsletters have so much information, I just don't have time to read all of that. So I think AI here could be helpful to understand which newsletters to recommend you. I think AI or like some sort of recommendation engine here would be crucial to have. Build a crew. It's like with the gym. If you go in alone, it's way harder to stick to it. If you have training buddies, it's way easier to do things. So try creating crew to solve different problems. Whatever is important in your life, try solving it together. That would be really beneficial. You can think which gaps in the skills or time or knowledge you have, and then you can collaborate. For example, for some reason you hate cooking or you don't know how to cook. So why not to cooperate with a person who loves cooking and would be glad to be at your dinner? And obviously you need to think what you would be giving back. Join a platform that can accelerate you. For example, when I joined Google, it gave me a lot of opportunities at the beginning of my career. So this is kind of a platform which was really helpful. You can seek other platforms and try joining them, and that could bring you a lot of opportunities. Of course, traveling is a really good way to discover unknown unknowns. You can meet different people who would truly change your life, and you would experience so many different cultures and start thinking outside the box. That's definitely helpful. It's super important to take time to reflect on your life once in a while. For example, why not to have retrospective every month and see what was going well, what wasn't, which type of activities, people or events bring you the most joy. Why not to double down into those? You can try analyzing why this worked. So this way, if you understand that, so you can search for more of those things specifically. And of course, you can use generative AI, LLMs, and like things like ChatGPT. I think it's really good for the first part of the brainstorm. Obviously, it's quite often wrong, but it's very good as a first part of the brainstorm when you need to come up with new ideas or with the new connections. So I quite often dump there lots of thoughts and just try to get new creative ideas. Now let's try thinking about more generic framework. I don't know all the answers how to come up with the best framework possible, but what I would do is I would add more tactics into that list. Then I would order tactics in this list based on potential value that tactic could provide you, based on amount of effort that you are willing to spend on it, and maybe based on some risk. Now we can select tactics which you are planning to execute and make them part of your routine. Ideally, for each tactic, it would be nice to establish some metrics. For example, amount of events that you visited that were successful leads later or converted into something good. You can establish some tracking system and basically follow on executing. And then once in a while, it would be great to do retrospectives to see how you can change the trajectory of the whole system and how to update it. So this is basically my approach. I'm not very well organized, so I don't have metrics for all of the tactics. If you have any ideas how to improve this framework, please let me know. In my case, luck played a massive role, and I'm very grateful for the universe to have it. Probably I wouldn't end up in this fascinating world of like bees, underwater life, engineering, or being surrounded by so many incredible people if I wasn't actively searching for opportunities. If you have time, design a framework to discover unknown unknowns which would be useful and beneficial for you. Think for yourself how to share your knowledge and life lessons at scale, how to empower other people around you. And remember that the only true limit is our imagination.